I saw him standing in the middle of the highway just after 3 a.m. At first, I thought it was roadkill, just another shadow in the dark, something to steer around and forget. But as my headlights swept forward, I saw the details. A man, standing perfectly still, facing me, waiting. The highway was deserted. No towns for miles. No lights, no signs of life. Just a stretch of empty road cutting through the trees. The man stood directly in my lane. No car nearby. No reason to be there. And yet, he wasn't moving. Not waving me down. Not signaling for help. Just standing there. I hit the horn. Long, loud. No reaction. He didn't flinch. Didn't even blink. The hair on my arms stood up. Something about him felt off. I flipped my high beams on. And that's when I saw it. His neck, bent at an unnatural angle. Not just a slight tilt. His entire head was crooked too far to the side. Like someone had grabbed his head and twisted it. And he was smiling. Not a normal smile. Not a relieved, "Thank God you found me" smile. This was something else. His lips pulled too wide, too tight. Teeth too white, too straight. It wasn't a human expression. It was the kind of grin a mannequin would have. Fixed in place. Forced. Unnatural. I gritted my teeth and kept driving. I checked my rearview mirror. He was gone. There was no way he could have moved that fast. I shuddered, forcing my eyes back to the road. But that feeling didn't leave me. That horrible, gnawing certainty that I was being watched. The highway stretched ahead, empty and endless. I told myself it was nothing. A trick of the light. Just exhaustion messing with my head. And then, I saw him again. Standing at the edge of the road. Closer this time. Facing the highway, his grin wider. Neck still bent. Still watching me. My pulse pounded. I checked the mirrors. Still nothing behind me. Still no sign of where he came from. It was like he had just appeared. I pressed the gas pedal. Didn't care about the speed limit anymore. I just needed to get away. I turned on the CB radio, hoping to hear another trucker nearby. The speaker hissed. Then, a voice. "You're not supposed to see him." A cold chill ran down my spine. I grabbed the mic, knuckles white. "Who is this?" Static. Then, "Don't stop. Whatever you do, don't stop." I slammed the radio off. I was done playing games. I just needed to make it to the next town. Lights appeared in the distance. A rest stop. I pulled in fast, my tires skidding on the pavement. The lot was empty. No cars. No other trucks. Just a single dimly lit gas station. I turned off the engine. Sat there, breathing, hands shaking. I reached for my thermos, needing something to ground me, and then I saw it, sitting on the passenger seat. A red envelope. I hadn't noticed it before, hadn't put it there. I reached for it with trembling fingers. The paper was smooth. I peeled it open, my breath catching in my throat. Inside was a single note, written in small, careful handwriting. "Don't look in the mirror." I froze. My blood turned to ice. Slowly, I turned my head toward the rearview mirror. And there, sitting in my sleeper cabin, was him, smiling, waiting. I don't remember leaving. I don't remember driving. But when I came to, I was parked outside a different truck stop, the sun just beginning to rise. The red envelope was gone. The mirrors were clean, like it had never happened at all. I don't drive that highway anymore, and I never look in my mirrors at night, because I know what I'll see. A man standing in the road, neck bent, grinning, waiting. I was making a late-night delivery to a house deep in the woods. That should have been my first red flag. I've been a long-haul delivery driver for years, taking odd jobs that smaller companies don't want. Most of the time, it's simple. Drop a package, get a signature, and move on. But this order was different. No company name, no return address, just a handwritten note, deliver after midnight. Do not leave unattended. That was my second red flag. The house was off a dirt road, miles from the nearest town. No street lights, no neighbors, just a single house, sitting at the edge of the woods. The windows were dark, no lights on, no car in the driveway. For a moment, I wondered if I had the wrong address. Then the front door opened, and an old woman stepped out. She was thin, too thin, her skin stretched tightly over sharp cheekbones. Her hair was white, long and wild, like she hadn't brushed it in weeks. She stared at me for a long moment. Then, she smiled. Not a warm, welcoming smile. A knowing smile, like she had been expecting me. "You're a strong one," she said. Her voice was dry, brittle like old paper. I forced a chuckle. "Yeah, heavy lifting is part of the job." She didn't blink, just kept smiling. Then she opened the door wider. "Come inside. I need help with something." I hesitated. I wasn't supposed to go inside customers' homes. Company policy. But something in the way she was looking at me, expecting me to say yes, made my stomach twist. Still, I didn't want to be rude. So I lied. "Sorry, ma'am. I'm in a rush. Got a lot more stops tonight." Her smile didn't falter, but her eyes darkened, like she was disappointed or annoyed. "At least put it in the living room for me," she said, stepping aside. I didn't want to, but I just wanted to be done with this stop. So I stepped inside, and immediately regretted it. The stench hit me first. Thick, suffocating, like rotting meat and damp earth. The house was cold, colder than the night air outside, like the heat hadn't been on in weeks. I tried not to breathe too deeply as I set the package down in the small, dimly lit living room. The walls were covered in old wallpaper, peeling at the edges. The furniture looked ancient and used, like no one had sat there in years. And then, I noticed the closet door, slightly ajar, and inside, something was moving. A faint shuffling sound, soft, like fabric shifting, like someone breathing. I froze, turned to the old woman. She was staring at me, still smiling, like she was waiting. My pulse pounded. I forced a tight smile. "All set, ma'am. Have a good night." I turned to leave, and she grabbed my arm. Her grip was surprisingly strong. Her nails were long, sharp, digging into my skin. "Stay a while," she whispered. My mouth went dry. I pulled free, too hard, too fast. Didn't care if I was rude. I walked straight for the door. Didn't look back. Didn't check the closet. Didn't give her a chance to stop me again. The moment I stepped outside, I felt like I could breathe again. I moved fast, climbing back into my truck. Locked the doors. Started the engine. My headlights lit up the house. The old woman was still standing in the doorway. Still smiling. Still watching. But the closet door behind her was now wide open, and something was standing in the shadows. Tall. Thin. Too many joints. I peeled out of there. Didn't look back. Didn't stop until I hit the next town. I parked at a well-lit gas station, trying to shake off the feeling of being watched. Took a deep breath. Told myself I was just tired, that my mind was playing tricks on me. Then I saw it, sitting on my passenger seat. A red envelope. I hadn't put it there. Hadn't even seen it when I got in. Hands shaking. I picked it up. The paper felt warm. I peeled it open. Inside was a single piece of paper, and written in small, careful handwriting. "Next time, don't go inside." I didn't sleep that night. By morning, the red envelope was gone. No proof. No way to explain it. Just the memory of that smiling old woman. And the thing in the closet. I don't deliver to isolated houses anymore. And if someone ever asks me to step inside, I tell them no. Because now I understand. Not every house is a home. And sometimes, they're just waiting for you to come inside. I saw the gas station before I saw the body. At first, it looked normal. Flickering neon lights. An empty lot. Just another lonely stop along a deserted stretch of highway. But the moment I pulled in, something felt wrong. The air felt too still. And then I saw it. The car. Just sitting there. Empty. And the driver's door was wide open. I killed the engine. Sat there for a long moment, scanning the lot. The station was small. Old. The gas pumps were outdated. The price signs so faded I could barely make out the numbers. But the store lights were on. Someone had to be inside, right? I stepped out of my truck. The night was too quiet. No wind. No insects. Just the distant hum of the fluorescent lights buzzing overhead. I made my way toward the store, my boots crunching against the gravel. That's when I noticed the blood. A small dark stain near the car. Then another. A thin trail leading toward the gas station entrance. My stomach twisted. I checked my mirrors. Checked the road behind me. Nothing. Just my idling truck and miles of empty highway. A deep, instinctual warning rang in the back of my mind. Something was wrong. I should have left. But I didn't. I stepped inside. The store was cold. Too cold. Like someone had left the freezer door open. Shelves lined the walls, stocked with dusty snacks and expired soda bottles. A small refrigerator hummed in the corner. The place was empty. At least, that's what I thought. Until I heard it. A faint shuffling sound. From the back of the store. I cleared my throat. "Hey, anyone here?" No response. The fluorescent lights flickered overhead. The shuffling stopped. Then, something shifted behind the counter. I turned my head just in time to see a figure stand up. A man. The clerk. But he wasn't moving right. His skin was pale, stretched too tight over his face. His eyes were wide, unblinking, like he had been awake for days. And his shirt was stained, dark patches spreading down the fabric. At first, I thought it was sweat. Then I realized it was blood. I took a step back. "Hey man, you okay?" The clerk didn't answer, didn't react, just stood there, watching. And then, slowly, he lifted his hand and pointed. I turned my head, and the fridge doors swung open. A wave of freezing air hit me. The hum of the fridge turned into a low, distorted sound, like a heartbeat. Slow, heavy. Inside, something moved. I saw it, pressed against the glass. A face, mouth open, eyes wide. And then, it smiled. I bolted, didn't look back, didn't stop. I threw myself out the door, running toward my truck. I fumbled with the keys, breath coming in short gasps. Got in, locked the doors, checked my mirrors. The gas station was dark, lights off, like it had never been open at all. And standing at the glass, behind the counter, the clerk, still staring, still watching me. I jammed the keys into the ignition. The truck roared to life. I sped out of there, tires screeching against the pavement. Didn't look back, didn't breathe until I was miles away. And then, I saw it, sitting on my passenger seat. A red envelope. I froze. My hands went cold. I reached for it, slowly peeling it open. Inside was a single note, written in small, careful handwriting. "You took too long." I didn't stop again that night, didn't sleep, didn't talk about it. By morning, the red envelope was gone. No proof, no way to explain it. Just the memory of that clerk's empty stare, and the smiling face in the fridge. I don't stop at unmarked gas stations anymore. And if a clerk hands me an envelope, I don't open it. Because now, I understand. Some places don't exist on a map. And if you stay too long, you don't exist anymore either. I almost didn't stop, but there was a car in the middle of the road, and I had no choice. I had been driving for hours, deep in the New Mexico desert. No towns, no streetlights, just an endless stretch of blacktop, cutting through the sand and silence. I was making good time. The night was clear. The stars stretched overhead, too bright, too many. And then, out of nowhere, a car, just sitting there, dead center of the road. Headlights off, hazard lights off. Like whoever was inside wasn't in trouble. Like they were just waiting. I slowed down, scanning the area. No movement. No sign of another vehicle. No skid marks, no crash, no smoke. Just a beaten-up blue sedan, parked in the middle of the highway, blocking both lanes. I flicked on my high beams. Still no movement. I grabbed the CB radio. Anyone near Route 285? Got an abandoned car in the middle of the road. Static. Nothing. No truckers nearby. No response. The radio felt dead. I tried again. Anyone? Possible breakdown. No driver in sight. Then, a whisper. Through the static. "Don't stop." I swallowed hard. The whisper was soft. Distorted. Like someone had spoken just under their breath. Like they were trying not to be heard. I gripped the wheel tighter. Told myself I was just hearing things. Told myself to ignore it. And then, I saw it. A shadow, moving behind the car. It was quick, a flicker of motion, a shape too tall, too thin. Gone the moment I blinked. I leaned forward, scanning the darkness. Nothing. No wind. No sound. Just the desert. Still. Silent. And then, the car door swung open. I didn't breathe. Didn't move. The driver's side door was hanging open now, but no one had stepped out. No one had moved. The car was still empty. Or at least, it looked empty. A sharp chill crawled up my spine. Something was wrong. I reached for the CB again, my fingers shaking. Anyone out there? I got movement near a stopped vehicle. Then, a gunshot. The crack of it split the night. Loud. Too close. I ducked instinctively, heart hammering. The sound had come from the desert, not the car. Someone was out there, watching me, hiding. I slammed the truck into reverse. Didn't care if I hit the damn car. Didn't care if I had to back up for miles. I just needed to get out. Then, another shot. Closer. I threw the truck into drive, swerving wildly around the sedan. And as I passed, a man stepped into my headlights. Tall, ragged clothes, wild, matted red hair. And in his hands, a hunting rifle. I barely had time to register his twisted grin before I flew past him, tires skidding against the asphalt. He didn't chase me, didn't try to move, just stood there, smiling, like this was all a game. I sped down the highway, pulse pounding, checked my mirrors. The road behind me was empty, but I wasn't safe yet, because just as I started to calm down, headlights appeared. In my rear view, the sedan was following me. I cursed under my breath, pressing the gas. The car matched my speed. Faster. Closer. Too close. The road stretched ahead, but there was nowhere to turn off. Just endless desert. And then, the sedan rammed me. My truck lurched forward. The impact shook the entire rig. I grabbed the wheel, fighting to keep control. The bastard was trying to run me off the road. Again. Harder. I saw the headlights flash in my mirrors. Saw the grinning man behind the wheel, his teeth white in the dark, like this was the best night of his life. Up ahead, lights, a checkpoint, state police. I floored it. The sedan backed off instantly, vanished into the desert. By the time I reached the checkpoint, I could barely breathe. I pulled over, stumbling out of my truck. A trooper approached. "You okay, driver?" I nodded, trying to calm myself. Some guy. He was chasing me. In a blue sedan. Red hair. He had a rifle. The cop's face darkened. His partner turned toward the road, scanning the darkness. Then he said something that made my blood run cold. "You're the third trucker to report him this month. They never caught him. The car was never found. No license plate, no records. Like he never existed at all. But I know what I saw. I know he's still out there, waiting for another driver to stop, for another game to start. And if you ever see a car parked in the middle of the road, don't stop, because some people aren't looking for help. Some people are hunting." I almost didn't stop, but I needed gas. And I almost didn't check, but something felt wrong. It was past 3 a.m., and I had been driving through the backroads of Montana for hours. No traffic, no lights, just endless dark highway, cutting through thick patches of pine trees on both sides. I wasn't even sure where I was anymore. My GPS lost signal hours ago. Then, out of nowhere, I spotted it. A gas station, right off the road. No signs, no billboards, no town nearby. Just a single gas station, sitting in the middle of nowhere, like it had been waiting for me. The lot was empty. No cars, no other trucks. Just a flickering 24-hour fuel sign buzzing weakly in the dark. The building itself looked old, run down, like it hadn't been updated in decades. But the lights were on, and I needed fuel. So I pulled in. As I climbed out of the cab, I noticed something weird. One of the gas pumps was already running. The nozzle rested on the ground, fuel dripping slowly onto the pavement, like someone had started pumping gas, and then just vanished. I scanned the lot. Still no cars, no movement, just the hum of the overhead lights buzzing too loud in the silence. I had the sudden, uneasy feeling that I wasn't alone. I grabbed the pump and started refueling as fast as I could. Kept my eyes on the store entrance. The glass doors were dark, but I could see a figure behind the counter. A clerk, standing perfectly still, not moving, not ringing anything up, just staring. I felt a shiver run down my spine. I told myself I was being paranoid, that he was just tired, that he was just bored. But he didn't look bored, didn't look tired, didn't even look real. And then he raised his hand, slowly, deliberately, and pointed at me. I nearly dropped the pump. Something about that gesture felt wrong. Not a wave, not a greeting, just a silent, deliberate point. Like he was marking me, like I had just made a mistake. The pump clicked. Full tank. I put it back and turned toward the store. Because now, despite every instinct screaming at me to leave, I needed to know. Needed to see if the clerk was really there, or if he was something else. I stepped inside. The air was stale, like the place hadn't been aired out in years. The overhead lights flickered weakly. The shelves were stocked, but everything looked old. Expired candy bars, dusty soda bottles, cans with labels I didn't recognize. And behind the counter, the clerk, still standing, still watching. Up close, he looked wrong. His uniform was old-fashioned, like something from the 80s. His skin was too pale, his eyes too wide, and he wasn't blinking, just staring at me, waiting. I swallowed hard. Pump 3. His lips curled slightly, not quite a smile, more like a test. Then, in a low, flat voice, "You're the first one tonight." A chill ran down my spine. I forced a chuckle. "Yeah? Slow night?" He didn't answer, didn't break eye contact, just slid something across the counter. A red envelope. I stared at it. I hadn't seen him pull it from anywhere, hadn't even noticed it until now. My hands felt cold. I swallowed. "What is this?" His smile widened. "Payment." I took a step back. "For what?" His expression didn't change, just lifted his hand again and pointed at the back of the store. I turned my head, and my blood ran cold, because at the very back of the store, the cooler doors were open, and inside, something was watching me. A face, pressed against the glass, mouth open, eyes black, and then it smiled. I bolted, didn't grab the envelope, didn't ask questions. I just ran. The moment I burst through the doors, the air felt different. The parking lot was darker, like the lights had dimmed, like the gas station was shrinking. I jumped into my truck, locking the doors, checked my mirrors. The store was dark, no lights, no clerk, like it had never been open at all. And sitting on my passenger seat, the red envelope. My hands shook as I picked it up. The paper was warm. I peeled it open. Inside was a single note, written in small, careful handwriting. "You took too long." I didn't stop again that night, didn't sleep, didn't talk about it. By morning, the red envelope was gone. No proof, no way to explain it. Just the memory of that clerk's empty stare, and the smiling thing in the cooler. I don't stop at unmarked gas stations anymore. And if a clerk hands me an envelope, I don't open it. Because now, I understand. Some places don't exist on a map, and if you stay too long, you don't exist anymore either. The first time I heard the screaming, I almost slammed on the brakes. It was a child's scream, shrill, panicked, coming from the woods. I had been on the road for hours, driving through a dense forest highway in the middle of nowhere. No towns, no other cars, just me, the trees, and the occasional roadkill. It was past 2 a.m. when I saw it. Scattered across the road, clothes, small clothes, like a kid had been running and lost them. A single red sneaker, a tiny blue hoodie, a pair of jeans ripped at the knees. The sight made my stomach tighten, because something about it felt wrong, like the clothes had been placed there, arranged. I slowed down, scanning the tree line. The woods were dark, too dark. My high beams barely cut through the shadows. And then, I heard it, a child screaming. The sound came from the trees, somewhere deep inside the forest, beyond the reach of my lights. The kind of scream that made your blood go cold. A sound of pure terror. I clenched the wheel, heart pounding. It was a kid, alone, terrified. I grabbed my CB radio. Anyone near Highway 16? I think I got a lost child in the woods. Static. Then, through the interference, a whisper. Soft. Wrong. Don't get out. My breath caught in my throat. The radio wasn't on a channel. No one had responded. The voice had just appeared. I gritted my teeth, shook my head. I was just tired, just imagining things. Then the screaming started again. Louder, more desperate, closer. I had to do something. I turned off the engine, swung open the door. The second my boots hit the pavement, I felt it. The air was wrong. Thick, heavy, like something was waiting. The trees didn't move. There was no wind. Even the insects had gone silent. Then, a snap, a branch breaking. From inside the woods, I stepped closer, peering into the darkness. I couldn't see anything past the first few trees, but I could feel it. Something was there. Something was watching me. Then the screaming stopped, abrupt, like someone had cut the sound off mid-breath. I went still. Every muscle in my body screamed at me to run. And then, a whisper, from just beyond the trees. Come help me. I froze. The voice was wrong. Flat, emotionless, like someone who had only ever heard words but never used them before. Like something trying to sound human. Then I saw it. A figure, just inside the tree line. Too tall, too thin, standing perfectly still. I couldn't see its face, just the outline of its head tilting, watching, waiting. I backed up slowly, didn't turn around, didn't blink, just moved toward my truck, forcing my legs to stay steady. The figure didn't move, didn't speak again, just waited, like it was expecting something. Then, just as I reached the door handle, the voice came again. Closer. Please help me. I yanked the door open, jumped inside, locked it. My hands were shaking as I reached for the keys. And then, a soft thump from the roof of my cab, like something had jumped onto it. I went still, didn't breathe, didn't move. Then, something dragged its fingers across the metal. A slow, scraping sound, long deliberate, like it was testing the surface. I slammed the keys into the ignition. The engine roared to life. The moment my headlights came on, I saw them. People, standing at the edge of the trees. Silent, still, watching me. There were too many. Their faces were wrong. Too smooth, featureless. Just shapes of people. Figures with no mouths, no eyes. And they weren't standing in front of the trees. They were coming from inside them, moving out of the trunks, like they had been part of the forest all along. I slammed the gas. The truck lurched forward, and as I sped away, I caught a glimpse in the side mirror. A figure crawling down from the roof of my cab, arms too long, fingers scraping against the metal. And as it slid to the pavement, it stood up, turned to face me, and whispered, "Next time, stop." I didn't stop driving until I reached the next town. Didn't breathe right until I saw another human face. Didn't speak of it for a long, long time. But now, every time I pass that stretch of road, I see the clothes, scattered in the same pattern. A red sneaker, a blue hoodie, jeans ripped at the knees. Like someone keeps putting them there. Like someone is waiting for me to stop. I never do. Because now, I understand. Some screams aren't real. And some things in the woods don't need to run. Because they know, eventually, you'll come to them.